like science.
I like science.
I like science.
We are ready for to start.
Science.
We are ready for to start and
Yep.
have started.
We have started. The Christmas tree is up, or as we like to call it, the Gothmas tree, even though the
Yes.
star is crooked on the top.
I keep telling you, I don't care about a crooked star because
Yeah.
perfection is an illusion.
Yep.
So, I mean, my mother and my grandmother used to care about things like that, but
Right.
at this point in my life, I just look at that and go, "What's the problem? What's the big deal? What is
It's
this
kind of
hurting?"
Charlie Brownie with it being slightly off kilter.
Yeah. Well, and it's a big fucking star, so
At
it's
least
kind
it's
of
not
hard to get
full on
straight.
Charlie Brownie when the weight of the star is so much that it leans over.
Well, it's not the weight of the star was so much. It's just that that tree was very, very
It was sad.
bare. It was a
It was a
sad
sad
tree.
bare tree.
Sad
But
bare
then they
tree.
goes all around it and they waved their hands in a kind of funny animated manner. And
It just and all of a sudden
Robert
it's lush.
Smigel, who did animations for Saturday Night Live, and he's the insult comic dog.
Hmm.
I remember he did an animation for Saturday Night Live about that scene,
I
and
remember
that
that.
the Charlie Brown kids would just go around the neighborhood and do the wavy animated hands to fix up everything. There's a dilapidated building, and they'd do that. There'd be homeless people, and they'd wave their hands, and yeah, it was pretty funny just going around magically improving everything by doing wavy hands.
Yeah, wavy
Which
hands.
wouldn't that be a nice power to have?
It
Just
sure
wavy
would.
hands and everything improves.
Wow. Wow. I could really use some of that right now as could
Yep.
most
Wavy
of us.
hands ourselves. Yep.
Sane people right now could
Yep. A little
really
wavy
use
hand
some of that.
action.
Little wavy hand.
So here we are for what, our third episode of Voyager?
Yeah, our third episode of Voyager, but our eighth episode overall, not including
Yeah.
the trailer, which is labeled episode 0.
Yep.
Yeah.
Meow, he says.
Meow.
Yep.
Kitty is getting in on the podcast.
He is.
Oh,
He
Dave's
does not want
picking
to
him
be
up.
picked up. He
No,
doesn't want it.
no. He's probably mad because my door's closed.
Yeah, he evaded me.
He always gets upset when the door's closed. I don't know why.
Hmm.
It's like I wasn't in there. I didn't want to be in there, but now that I can't get in there, I want to get in there.
Cats hate a closed door.
It's very typical.
Yep, they always want to be on the other side of it, no matter what side they're on.
So true. So
They're
true.
like kids that way. Close the
We
bathroom door
always,
and they're like, "What are you doing in there? Can I come in?" It's like, "No, this is the bathroom. This is private time."
yeah. It's basically just human nature. We always want what we are on the other side of.
Yep,
So
it's like a
it's
Bjork
that
song.
it's like the grass is always greener on the other side, and you get to the other side and you're like, "Oh, wait, this wasn't isn't as good as
Yep.
what I had." And then you want to be back where you were, and it's just, yeah.
There's a Taoist fable about that. The fable of the rock cutter.
Mm,
This guy who's chiseling away at a mountain to, get stone for building, and the sun is beating down on him. He says, "Oh, to be the sun, how awesome would that be?" And becomes suddenly the sun and goes around just scorching the earth until a cloud comes by. And he says, "Well, to be the cloud, to have the power to block the sun, how amazing would that be?" So he becomes a cloud. And then as he's a cloud, he goes around just raining and flooding towns and villages until he comes to a mountain and he cannot cross the mountain. And then, as he is the mountain, he feels just this tiny chipping away at him. And he looks down and he sees this miner just chipping away at the rock, and at that he can wish to be back to where he was. So,
yeah.
yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's a power of the small kind of thing. It's like, yeah, it's just to acknowledge the value of where you are rather than where you could be.
Yeah, because there's nothing that says that where you're going is going to actually be better.
Right.
So sometimes just be grateful for what you got. All
I think I
right.
skipped a step in that where he wished to be this noble too, but I think it just messes it up. I think it's cleaner if you avoid that. step.
Yep.
But yes, Shattered.
Shattered. Yeah, season 7 of Voyager, episode 11, Shattered. And
7-Eleven.
7-Eleven. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yep.
So yeah, this is an interesting one.
Yeah.
Some people
It's
like this, some people hate it.
it's almost a clip show without being a clip show because it's not a best of, it's more like a remix album where you
It
get to see
is.
aspects of previous episodes, but they're slightly askew because they're
Mm,
done in a different timeline. So it's kind of fun in that respect. It's like just getting a heavy dose of all of Voyager in one episode.
yeah. So we get before the Delta Quadrant Janeway, right?
Yep.
And then we've got before merging with the Maquis people, like
Yeah,
Alana and company.
right.
Um,
The
we've
Doctor
got
before the
before
mobile
the mobile
emitter.
emitter, 7 of 9 is still as a Borg drone.
We
Um,
get future Icheb.
future Icheb and future Naomi Wildman
Yep.
and dead Tuvok. We get dead Tuvok.
Dead Tuvok
We don't like that. We
with a
do not
lot
like
of
seeing that him
radiation
die.
burn makeup.
Yeah, no, I don't like
Yeah,
that.
we get current or slightly future Paris, Tom Paris.
Yeah, slightly future. That's the future that after the anomaly. We
We
get some
get
Seska and some Kazon.
we get some Seska. Yes, we do. We get a Chaotica
Oh God, I forgot
episode
about that.
of the holodeck.
Yes, where of course Janeway is forced to be Queen Arachnia.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. That was a weird one. Where I'm just kind of like, why? Why is
We
this
get
here?
Harry Kim at the con.
Yes, Harry Kim was he was actually in command at the time that this started.
How busy or how unavailable is everyone else for Harry Kim to get the con?
You shut the fuck up about Harry Kim.
No, I'm
All
just
right?
saying he's much lower ranked than he should be.
Yes, he is, but rank is not necessarily a roadblock to being in the command chair,
Right, okay.
especially with this particular crew that has been isolated from the rest of Starfleet for years.
It just
And
seems like a chain
so,
of command kind of thing, like a hierarchy, and he'd be low on, or
yeah, but
actually
this
high on
isn't
the totem pole, because the smaller on the totem pole is the more important, because the more closer you are to the Earth, the more important you are as a deity or a figure in Native
exactly.
American culture.
Yes,
So being the
but
big man on the totem pole is not where you want to be. You want to be low.
you want to be low. But the thing is, this isn't his first time sitting in the command chair.
Right.
So there's a pattern of this now. And I find it as do other people when Janeway has been inoculated and
Right.
uh Chakotay is explaining astrometrics lab to
Hmm.
her and he's like, yeah, Harry Kim, he designed that. And she's like, Harry Kim? And I'm like, fuck you, writers. Fuck you.
Yeah, it was very dismissive, but it also was like he just got on. So he
Yeah.
was like brand new, like right out of the academy new, it seemed like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this was again pre getting to the Delta Quadrant, pre,
Yeah. Yeah, it
caretaker, all of
was
that.
pre-caretaker, yeah.
So she probably knew very little about him at that
Hmm.
point and didn't have any expectations of him going beyond what he was currently doing. So,
Yep.
but even so, it's just like, and Dan was talking about this. We were talking about this and when we were messaging back and forth, and he said that same thing, but also, I, I- my re- he said, I think that the writers really hated him. And my response to that was, well, then the writers should have written him better.
Yes. Yeah, because they have the opportunity to make somebody cool that they don't like.
Hmm.
If they come in just not liking somebody, then they're going to write them poorly. So
Yeah.
who knows what that's about? I guess we should probably just briefly summarize what happens. So,
Sure.
the Voyager is studying this anomaly. it starts to have this energy fluctuation, and some kind of weird lightning bolt thing hits the ship, and it affects the warp drive, I do believe,
Hmm.
and then zaps Chakotay and puts him basically out of temporal phase.
Yep.
And he starts experiencing different timelines throughout the ship. Because he can go through because, he's affected, so he's like immune to the effects of this temporal
No, that's because
shattering.
the doctor,
Oh, that's right. The doctor creates this kind of vaccine against
temporal
it.
serum
Yeah,
to
temporal
put him
serum
back in
because
phase.
like he had the kidneys of a 17-year-old, the liver of an 80,
Mm.
all his organs were mixed up temporally, and to realign them all, the EMH created this serum and could have won an award for it if he wasn't,
Stranded
isolated.
in
And
the Delta
yeah,
Quadrant.
the Delta Quadrant. But
Yeah.
yeah, that puts, that immunized Chakotay from the effects of this temporal shattering.
Yeah, and the whole big thing about the warp drive is that it was losing containment, which is always the worst thing that could be happening to the warp drive, apart
Yep.
from it being just blown up,
Right.
because you lose containment, basically it's going to blow up
Oh yeah, because
because,
it's matter and antimatter, and that's one of the biggest energy instances that you can have is a
yeah,
huge explosion because matter and antimatter really shouldn't meet because if they do, kaboom.
it'd be a big bada boom.
And I think there's a theory that antimatter goes backwards through time.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is weird because how can you use it then if it's going backwards through time?
Well, see, that's the thing is that this is stuff beyond our comprehension
Hmm.
because we are not advanced enough to understand it.
Yeah, is how an antimatter universe would function, that gravity would be in reverse and like everything would be in reverse because antimatter is inverse to matter. So the assumption is that it would operate in an inverse fashion to the physics we understand, which to
Hmm.
me would just make it unstable because that's the opposite of stable. And our matter operates mostly through stability, which is
Yes,
why
well,
our universe doesn't dissolve. Because that's another thing with the multiverse theory is most multiverses are almost instantly destroyed because they're not physically stable. They
mm,
lack the physics of our universe, and so they just collapse almost immediately.
yeah. Well, there's a lot we don't know about our
Yeah,
universe. I mean, we can't even
yeah.
explain what dark matter is, so
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It's like the mass of it doesn't seem to make sense for the size of it.
yeah.
It's
Well, see,
kind
and
of
that
it breaks the brain.
and that's the thing. Again, we don't
Yeah,
know everything.
right.
We're not advanced in our mental capabilities to understand this yet. Maybe
Yeah,
someday, but
maybe.
not today. Not this
Nope.
day.
So yeah, that's
So,
that's just in brief the summary of what happens and why we're talking about these different timelines on the Voyager.
yep.
And
It
the time continuum must be disassociated from space. Because usually we talk about the space-time continuum, which is necessary because if you give somebody the time to meet you, that's useless without the place to meet you. You need both. Meet me here at this time.
well, and
Meet
it
me the
goes,
corner of this street at 2:30. And
and the
so if you
reverse is
have,
true as
yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah, meet me at this place at this time, meet me at this time in this place. And so when people talk about time travel and stuff, you also need space travel because time travel is useless if you don't move through space as well. Because going backwards 10 years is just going to put you in the middle of deep space. Because if you're not moving with the rotation of the Earth and with the movement of the Earth, if you move through time and not space, that's going to be useless to you. And so it's interesting that all these different timelines exist within the same space because if they were connected to the space-time continuum, the ship would be ripped apart because each time would be relocated to the place in which that time happened.
I'm smiling because I love you so much. You're just the best.
Did that ever cross your mind when they're
Yes.
going through the different timelines?
Yeah, of course. Because again, this is filmed within 90s, well, actually early 2000s. uh knowledge
kind
of
of, yeah.
science and technology, and yeah,
Well,
and
even then
the
they had understanding of relativity and the
well, of
connection of
course.
space and time.
I know, but also it's just one of those things that has been invented in order to make science fiction shows, because
Right.
all science fiction shows have stuff like this. I mean,
Well,
warp
well,
drive isn't a thing.
it,
It isn't a thing. It's probably
it
never going to be a thing.
yeah, creating a warp bubble to protect you from time dilation when moving faster than the speed of light is an interesting concept. But yeah, I could see how does that work? How can you move faster than light and not affect relativity?
Yeah, well, and see, and I always, when I was a kid, I thought of it as if it's a warp drive, it's warping space.
Right.
So it's almost like that, that those, it's almost like that, gravity drive in Event Horizon, where the
Yeah.
shortest distance between 2 points is nothing.
Yeah, when they fold the center fold and poke a pin through it,
Mm-hmm.
because you're basically folding or lensing space, because
Yeah.
space is mostly empty anyway. And so if you can compress all that empty space, so I like the probability drive from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yes.
It's the unlikelihood that you can move from one space to the other in very little time is what the drive does. And so it just mathematically goes to the improbability of being able to do that. And so you'll turn into a bit of yarn or create a whale in space. Go through all these different improbability things until you arrive at that improbability specific thing where you go from here to there, basically
Mhm.
teleporting.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing. That's how I always, as a kid and a teenager, looked at
Yeah.
warp drive, is that it's warping the space in
Oh,
order
I'm
to
sure it
create a
is.
shorter distance.
But they also talk about the warp bubble, which seems to be this thing that protects you from the time dilation of traveling faster than the speed of light.
But are they traveling faster than the speed of light, or are they warping space to make it a shorter distance?
Well, they're both kind of the same thing in a way. And yeah, it's not like an FTL drive from Battlestar Galactica, but if you're, it's it's the relativity thing too. Is
Yeah,
like
I know.
you're either way, you're arriving to a place before you should really get there if you travel by conventional means.
Right.
And so either you're warping space, you're going through a wormhole, or you're, traveling faster than light. But in all those instances, how does that affect the observer who's watching you travel that quickly?
Hmm.
Yeah, it boggles the mind. But then I'm not a physicist. I'm just kind of playing around with science fiction concepts. But
Well,
yeah,
and yeah.
yeah, so it seems in this one instance, time is not, or time is detached from space in a way, or it's attached to one specific space,
Well, yeah,
which
they
is
were
interesting.
enveloped in that whole
Yeah.
field. So there was that, and that was coming
Hmm.
from the anomaly. But thanks to everyone for attending the this first session of Dave Breaks Your Brain with Physics.
Yeah. Theoretical weird physics. Yeah, because like, how can Seska be there if they're in a different location than where she would have been, what, 7 years ago or whatever?
Oh,
Or
not so
not
much
seven,
7 years
4
ago.
years ago.
Yeah.
And boy, does she love to kick Chakotay in the balls. Oh my God.
Well, like, let me get this off my chest now that we're talking about Seska for a minute.
All
So,
right.
Martha Hackett, love
Uh-huh.
her dearly. Um, People really love Seska. I was not a huge fan at first. She did grow on me. But the one thing that really, uh, with watching this particular episode again, it's been years since I've seen it. So watching this again, it became so very clear, and this I find this actually a bit offensive, that everything that you see in this episode with Seska, everything that she has ever done, especially after being revealed as a Cardassian spy and going off with the Kazon, has been to make Chakotay love her.
Yeah, everything she does is motivated by a man, which isn't very
Hmm.
good for the Bechdel or Bechdel
Bechdel,
test. Bechdel it is, but
Bechdel,
Bechdel. Okay.
Bechdel, yeah.
I've heard it both ways, so it can be confusing. Um, yeah, that everything she does is motivated by a man. which
Yeah,
is absurd.
it is because Seska would have been a much greater character. Not that she isn't
Hmm.
great, but she could have been even greater if the whole Chakotay angle had not been a thing.
Yeah,
Because she's powerful in her own right.
right.
But it just really hit me when I watched that again today with you that I
Mhm.
just ah,
Even in this instance, she's flirting with him.
just
Yeah,
just basically just stamping her foot. Why won't you love me? Sort
yeah,
of thing. Poor
yeah,
girl.
yeah, yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
Martha Hackett deserved better. She's
Yep.
better
It
actor
could have
than
been
what she
a
got.
better character. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's that. Just had to get that off my chest because it just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks in that final scene with
Right.
in that particular timeline. So, yeah, I'm sure that Jerry Ryan was not excited about being made up as a Borg drone again because, oh God, that looks uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's a lot of makeup. It might have been fun to revisit the origins of the character every once in a while, just to tap back into, how it started.
Hmm.
That might have been a little fun. And she got to do a big kick-ass moment when she came in and stopped the whole Kazon and Seska uh takeover.
That was pretty badass.
Yeah. And she walked in and absorbed the blaster or phaser blast because, being Borg.
Yeah, just striding in purposefully. It's like,
Mm,
and the thing is that Chakotay knows so much more about Seska now, of course,
hmm.
because of what he's already been through with her,
Right.
and knows his crew. He knows what Seven of Nine is like at that time, where she had just become detached from the collective, all of these things. He had all of this knowledge, which is why they managed to survive that particular confrontation
Hmm.
because he could read Seska like an open book. He knew exactly how she was
Yep.
going to react, exactly what she was going to do, and he had everything planned. And I'm sure had a backup plan as well,
Well,
obviously.
that's
But
the whole Groundhog's Day thing, is if you
mhm,
know what's going to happen, you're already prepared.
yep,
And so, to have already experienced some of these things and to have that information and know how to go about the ship doing things that had already been done and, with the knowledge of where they are in time. And when he brings Janeway, past Janeway, pre caretaker Janeway into it, and she's got to learn all this stuff, but not because of the temporal prime directive.
yep,
It's like she's learning all this stuff and she's asking all these questions, and he's trying, he's feeding her some information, but not others, not other bits and tidbits. So it's kind of fascinating to see him go through with already some knowledge and, except when they go into the astrometrics lab, which 17 years they've been there
mm,
and they haven't come up with a solution, which makes you think that the rest of the ship that they're cut off from, you would think that the rest of Voyager is still there, but they can't leave astrometrics lab because of the barrier, I
hmm,
guess. That even what a transporter might not be able to puncture through the temporal barrier.
yeah,
So there must be the rest of this Voyager that's existed for 17 years that still hasn't found a solution to this problem.
yeah.
I find that dubious
Oh yeah, of course.
because
But it,
Chakotay manages, to do it in what, a few hours maybe?
hmm.
Who knows how long this has taken, but it doesn't seem that long. But without Chakotay, it takes 17 years?
Well, the thing is that we don't know everything that happened in the future.
Right.
They could have lost the knowledge of the doctor's temporal serum. They could
Right.
have uh maybe all of the biogel packs had been destroyed and that wasn't an option for them, etc. But that isn't actually the
True.
case because they had to go around inoculate. See, the one time when those biogel packs are actually helpful.
Yeah.
Every other time, they've been a problem. It's like,
This,
oh,
yeah,
look, this one got infected by cheese mold.
yep.
Just
Wow.
so many just so many problems with the biogel packs, which is why
Hmm.
you never hear about them in any other
Well,
series.
it's a pretty bad idea to install something biological if it's not got really decent immunity.
Yeah,
It's going to get sick.
it's gonna get a
It's
cold
like,
all the time.
Farscape when you have a biological ship, you're basically flying around in a space whale, is that space whale can get sick.
Yeah,
And then what?
and she can also get pregnant.
Yep, pregnant, injured, die.
Yep. God, I love science
He
fiction. The cat
wants
is
to go
obviously
outside
not
where it's
happy.
cold and wet.
It's cold and wet, and we had a bit of snow today, even.
Yeah, he does not understand winter,
Yeah.
which is weird because he's been in winter before.
He has a lot been in winter, but it's like he thinks it's going to be different every time.
Yep.
So, yeah. So
I know
yeah.
this one's it's shattered, so it's hard to know where to start or where to go. I mean, I guess we could talk about each instance of each time loop. We talked about the Seska one. Do you want to just do that one all together as one thing
Yeah,
and
well,
just address that? I
it's
mean, we kind of already
basically
had.
well, that was basically when Seska took over the ship again, and of
Hmm.
course they were able to retake the ship. We know this. We know
Yep,
this.
and she's in engineering near the warp drive, which they
Yep.
have to go to input this code for, when the anomaly strikes again.
Yep. So, yeah, it's just a lot of it's all just very convenient,
Yeah.
honestly. It kind of stretches my ability to suspend my disbelief. Because yes, I
It,
know it's
yeah.
science fiction, but there's a lot about this that just doesn't fit
Well, like I said, it's
overall.
like a remix album. It's like almost like a best of. It's a highlight reel of events that took place in Voyager over, the seven seasons. And I
Yeah.
guess Seska was one of them they wanted to revisit. So they picked that one, Chaotica, they picked that one. They chose specific things, which I guess is why we see Naomi Wildman and Icheb early on putting that puzzle together
Mm.
when Chakotay comes in wanting to hide this ale. Like, no, it's cider.
Cider.
Yeah.
Because
Uh,
otherwise Neelix will get into it.
yeah, and so to hide it along the Borg parts because the Borg parts creep Neelix out so he doesn't do inventory. Is there a job Neelix doesn't do on the ship?
He
Because he's like their
doesn't.
cook, their morale guy. He seems to be kind of a teacher and caretaker, and then he's also taken inventory.
Yeah, well, he has to take inventory because of his own organic supplies for the galley.
Right, 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 right.
So that makes sense. But that's why Chakotay needed a different place to store his stuff instead of with Neelix's food and drink, because then Neelix would use it. So
And wasn't that puzzle a little too early age for Naomi? The
it
size of those puzzle
seemed,
pieces.
yeah,
I mean, she'd
especially
already be doing like a 500 piece puzzle, you would think, rather than what looked like a 30 piece.
well, and because she's half human and half, oh gosh, I've forgotten what her father is, damn it.
Yep.
Sorry guys, you all know you're shouting it while I'm saying this. You're shouting
Yeah.
it at
No
into the
preparation, no editing.
no.
We just talk about what we saw in the
I watched
episode.
the episode. That was preparation.
Yep.
So, but yeah, she basically she was a baby, and then it
Hmm.
seemed like over the course of 2 or 3 years, she's suddenly like around 7.
Right.
So
Well, her mom was like that though. So, it wasn't her mom Kess, or am I
no,
confused? No?
her
Okay,
her
I'm confused.
no, Kess is not a Wildman. Kess is an
Okay.
Ocampan,
Okay, so
and
because yeah, that rapid aging thing just seemed to be a thing with Ocampan, so I thought maybe that was related to Naomi as well, but I guess not.
no, she's
Okay.
got those little bumps on her head too, so that's not
It's a
Ocampan either.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to do this rapid aging thing. I guess they just don't want to work with too young of children on set.
Yeah. Yeah, and see that's the thing. It's like, oh yeah, well, it's a great idea to do this, and then you have to actually think of the logistics of continuing that
Right.
instead of, just forgetting that this baby was
Hmm.
born on Voyager. and
It's like,
actually
yeah.
and actually isn't the original baby because of another episode where Voyager was broken apart into two different ships, and
Mhm.
the Harry Kim and the Naomi Wellman are from a different reality.
Yeah. Well, that's why in sitcoms, babies usually disappear, into a couple of seasons or even with the first season. It's like the parents have a baby during sweeps week or something, and do you ever see the baby again?
No.
It's like, what happened to this baby? It's like, did
Yeah.
they have three kids? Where's this third child?
Yeah. That happened on Boy Meets World.
Yeah, it did. That's the one
Like
that specifically I was thinking about. It's
it
like they have
just
this baby, and then what happened to it? Who knows?
well, it wasn't so much a baby. It was the daughter was already there and she was
Yeah.
just very young.
Uh-huh.
And then she disappeared and disappeared and disappeared. And they make a joke about it in a later
Mhm.
episode. She's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that was the longest time out I've ever been in. And
Yeah.
so I
It's like
think that's what she
she's
said.
at I think she's at the breakfast table and they're like, "Whoa, where have you been?"
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
television writers, then what they're forced to do sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's stuff for ratings.
yeah.
So yeah, we kind of discussed that bit. Pre caretaker Janeway being suspicious of everybody. Uh, immediately wanting to put Chakotay in the brig for being, the Maquis because they were chasing his ship, I think.
Yes, they were chasing his ship.
And of course, during this time, Tuvok would have been on his ship as a spy. So,
Yep.
yeah, interesting there.
We didn't see
Uh,
him as Tuvok the spy.
yeah.
Um, and we
That
saw
would have
Angry
been
B'Elanna.
nice to see that. Yeah. Angry B'Elanna, and of course, putting all the trust in Chakotay. So when he comes in and says, "Hey, this is what's going on," and she's like, "Well, yeah, it's like I haven't ever doubted you before. Why would I doubt you now?"
Well, and he even says, I've never lied to you. I'm not lying now.
And isn't that weird for the brig to have the gel packs available to get to? Don't you want the brig to be secure of anything like that, especially if you have an engineer in the brig who could do something with the gel packs, maybe to create some kind of power surge and to unlock the door or something?
Yeah, well, he never really gets to the brig because he crosses into another reality and
Well,
the
yeah,
people taking him to the brig.
yeah, but isn't that where the Maquis were being kept when he goes to see Balana?
Were they in the brig? It didn't look like a brig to me,
Okay, all right.
but I could
Because
be wrong.
that's what I thought. Because they were all grouped together in this room, and I was thinking, oh, that must be a brig where they kept the Maquis before they integrated the two crews.
I don't think that was the brig. It just didn't look like a brig. Like there was
Huh?
no force field keeping them in
Right.
or anything like
Well,
that.
well,
So
I thought it was one of those things where they were inside the room, so we didn't see the force field.
yeah, but he comes into the room.
Yeah, like it was. I guess so.
He comes into
So
the room
that's
with Janeway.
what room was that then? Some storage room?
I don't know. Probably a cargo bay.
Yeah.
I
He
think
is
I
really
think that would,
insistent.
yeah, I know. I think that's what it would be because if I remember right, do they not take the ship on board? Oh my God, it's been a long time since I've
Oh,
watched the
so
yeah.
it was a small enough, was maybe
It
they
was a
were
smaller
on a
ship.
shuttle or a small ship, so they got the ship on board into the cargo bay of the Voyager, because Voyager's a huge ship,
Yeah.
so it probably could do that.
Because
Um,
yeah, Maquis ships are not huge.
right. Because
So,
they're kind of like the brown shirts from Serenity or Firefly,
mm,
the Maquis, kind of same kind of philosophy.
yep. Yep. But honestly, when you go back and look at it and when you rewatch Deep Space Nine especially, it's like, the Maquis were right.
Well, yeah, in some respects, I suppose so.
No, they were absolutely right because basically they were like, if you do this, if you force us out of our homes and you let Cardassians take over, this is not going to
Right.
end well for you. This is going to cause problems later on. This is going to result in war.
Yep.
And what happens? Oh, gee.
Yeah, never capitulate with fascism.
Nope, never, ever, never do that.
Because, yeah, thinking that you're going to get along, and so you give up some things to get along. No, they're going to take it all.
Yep.
And,
And
and
so,
it's a foot in the door.
mhm.
As soon as you give them anything, it's a foot in the door.
Yeah. How do you
And
think Nazis happened, kids?
yeah, yeah.
Did we
It's
learn
like
nothing from
the
history?
like trans women in sport thing. Is
Hmm.
everybody's like, well, let's just get rid of this issue, and then it's like suddenly they're banning trans everything
Hmm.
because they banned this one thing which others them, and then they can use that as an excuse to ban everything else.
Yes.
Yeah,
Now, I'm not saying that all the actions that Maquis ships took were good ones,
right.
but they were right in what they said would happen.
Yeah,
And what the Federation did was wrong.
yeah. Is they capitulated.
Hmm.
They looked the
That was
other
wrong.
way. Yeah. It's
So,
like stuff going on in Gaza
hmm.
that, you have a relationship with a particular nation. You're like, well, it's like, well, the more you go, well, the more people die. And,
Hmm.
it's not really helping anybody. Yep.
Anyway.
Yep. Yep. uh, Mobile emitter, we already talked about that. The doctor before the mobile emitter and how much of a sourpuss he is.
He's a sourpuss no matter what. He gets
Yep.
better along the way, but
Yeah.
that's the thing. He's expanding his programming
Hmm.
throughout the series. So it's it was fun to see the older doctor,
Oh,
and
yeah.
God bless you, Robert Picardo.
Yeah, you could see just his talent going back into a previous version of himself, and it worked really
Mm,
well.
it
And I
did.
think a lot of the cast members managed that well.
I agree.
I mean, even seeing, Janeway, this
Oh yeah.
early vision or version of her and what her expectations were for her command and how differently that turned out than what she had hoped. And
Hmm.
it's like, well, this Voyager, is a death trap. It's like, well, you're only seeing it in bits and pieces. That there's so much that you've done, like seven each ebb. These people that you met, Naomi, they weren't there before. You've gone into the Delta Quadrant and picked up all these misfits and created this kind of hodgepodge crew of Maquis and Starfleet and picking up strays along the way like Neelix, who got her coffee black and she was like, wow, how did
How
you
did
know?
you?
It's like, well, if 7 years, this has been your standing order.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, apart from the hard to suspend my disbelief parts, I did find this episode interesting.
Yeah, I liked the character bits. I liked
Yes.
the highlight reel, revisiting
Highlight
episodes
reel.
of Voyager in a new context, like seeing the macroviruses again.
Oh my God, yeah.
I thought
It,
going back into Chaotica was a bit much, but
it
I
was
could
too
see why
long.
because it's a fan favorite.
Yeah, but it
And
was too long.
it's like the Janeway eye rolls, if there was one more, I think I would have flipped my lid. But yeah, that went on for too long for such an unnecessary scene.
Mhm.
Because all they needed to do was go into the holodeck, open up a panel, and inject the gel packs, like they were everywhere else.
It
And so,
is it just me, or should that panel have not been that accessible visually? It's the
well, there,
holodeck. It's
uh,
supposed to create a reality where that's the reality, and you just move a few rocks and there's the panel. I don't think so.
yeah, there should have been a panel they lifted that
Mm-hmm.
was disguised rather than just rocks put in front of it.
Yep.
So
That
yeah,
made
it
no
was
sense.
it was poorly done and it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
And also that, it was color and not in black and white. So it's like everything else is, yeah, it's so easily to spot. So yeah, I could see why they revisited it because, people really love it, but it was unnecessary.
Yeah. I did laugh when the macrocosm thing, the virus came out.
Oh yeah.
And Janeway says something. I can't even remember what she said,
Oh,
but
something
I
about
just said
germs.
she has something about yours. I said, yeah, that was from the time that you were Ripley.
Yeah.
Because that episode is basically Janeway as Ellen Ripley.
Hmm.
And she is pissed off, and that's where that whole thing where grab a phaser, we're going to get some answers.
Yeah. Was that during Year of Hell?
No,
Or is this somewhere else?
that
Okay,
that
because
was its
she was
own
kind of
thing.
Ripley-ish in her own way during that.
Yeah, well,
Um,
that was only two episodes, dear.
that's true. They wanted
So
to do a whole season that was that, or yeah, to make it
I'm
literally a whole year, and
I'm actually grateful they did not do that.
yeah, because that would have been a lot to just seeing them suffer. But I
Yeah.
guess that was the original pitch, is Lost in Space, but do that with Star Trek,
Yeah.
and to
But
have them have very few resources, which is something they never quite did. I mean, they touch upon it sometimes, but never really does seem to affect them too much. It's mostly
yeah.
just the distance between them and home that they address.
Yeah, it's like they suddenly forget about replicator rations, and it's
Hmm.
always okay to have the holodeck on.
Yeah, that the holodeck runs on its own power sources. Like, why not reroute that power source to something more necessary?
Yeah,
And
it's
nobody
dumb.
uses the holodeck.
It's dumb.
Yeah,
But
makes no sense.
I can understand why they'd want to keep the holodeck because
Hmm.
crew morale.
Yep.
But that was a dumb way to do it, frankly. You should have had
Yeah.
holodeck rations.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd
Yeah.
been more interesting, I think. But
Hmm.
then, yeah. And to have, demerits is like, hey, that's a holodeck ration from you for, screwing up. So you don't get to go to the holodeck for a couple of weeks.
Yep. Right.
Anything else to say about this episode? Really?
Um,
I think that's a no.
yeah, I can't really think of anything else that I wanted to touch on.
Yeah, I think the acting was superb in this across
Mm,
the board. We addressed that, people being able to embrace future or past versions of themselves, or
hmm
uh, dying Tuvok doing the live long and prosper. It's a nice
Samantha. That's
moment.
Naomi's mother's name,
Or
Samantha.
Samantha.
Samantha is human.
Samantha.
Samantha's human.
Right.
So yeah, just always look at all the episodes from later seasons on and realize that Naomi Wildman and Harry Kim are not the originals.
I've
Or
got
are they?
something to add. Um, Janeway picking up on a connection between between her and Chakotay,
Hmm.
and saying, "Hey, how close do we get?" Because it seems like we get pretty close, and he's like, "Well, there's some lines we don't cross," and it's like, well, "You made her a bathtub. You made her a bathtub. You carved a bathtub for her because she's told you is the how she most likes to relax."
Hmm.
It's like, and you guys have these dim lit dinners together.
Hmm.
And when he comes in and she's on the floor tinkering with stuff.
Oh,
Oh, Janeway, don't sit on the floor. You're gonna get up. Your knees are gonna be like, ah.
yeah. Well, and see, that's the thing. That's all of those things, all those cumulative things throughout the season, and then
Mhm.
in season 7, Chakotay's dating Seven.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
That never made sense. It never fit. I hated it.
Because it's clear Chakotay and Janeway have this chemistry, that
Yeah.
there's sparks between them, and there's always this, will they, won't they thing going on, very moonlighting thing between them. It's like you guys are
This,
these are almost romantic dinners. You're professionals, the first officer and the captain having these dinners together, but they're always so intimate.
hmm. Yeah. Interesting. But
Yeah,
I
where we can't have nice things because Rick
know.
Berman,
Mm. Well, and that's actually just a thing about television at that time, is nobody
right?
could get together because then once they get together, the magic is gone. I'm like, really? That's how life works. People get
Yeah, because
together and now they're together, and that's an amazing, wonderful thing, and they go off and do
yep,
wonderful things together.
and there's complications too when you're together.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, and that's the thing between gray and blue.
Mm.
Blue. What's their name in Discovery? It, Inari. Shit,
Adira.
escape me. Adira. Yeah, Adira and Gray. It's like there was so much like pushing for them, and just to have their relationship kind of fizzle. It's like, well, that was kind of nothing.
Well, to be
But
fair,
that's yeah, they're
that's
young.
and that's the thing. That's
That's
actually
life.
pretty true life,
Yeah.
really, because a lot of relationships that you form when you're young
Hmm.
do not necessarily stand the test of time, because when you're around that age and still basically a teenager or in your
Right.
early 20s, you s- you may not have a complete sense of who you are and who you want to be. And especially spending time apart and
Yeah, when
having different
there's
goals.
your hopes and dreams and yeah, your goals in life are not conducive to sticking together. Like one
Yeah,
wants to be on the ship doing engineering and science stuff, and the other wants to be, a caretaker on
guardian.
the Guardian, yeah, on the chill homeworld.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
So,
just the relationships like that, it's hard to keep.
well, and it was a pretty big step to give us that relationship in the first place, not because of their gender identities or whatever,
Yeah.
but because of their age. It's not something you see much in Star
Hmm?
Trek, if at all.
Yeah, young love.
Yeah. And so
Um,
I appreciated that because, that does happen a
right.
lot. It exists out there.
And then we get Balana and Tom, and that's a weird relationship because we have addressed before where Tom doesn't seem to understand anything about her, doesn't even seem to be paying that much attention. Like when she was completely depressed and he's like just shrugging it, going, "Oh,
Yeah, well, to be fair, I think she was the one who was still struggling. I mean, she was into him. She admitted she loved him, all of those things, and yet there's
right,
still that part of her that she hasn't, I think at that point, really, what's the word I'm looking for here? She's still not comfortable with the both sides of herself.
right," and that's something we addressed in that episode as
Yeah.
well. That she struggles with her human and Klingon side and kind of integrating those two things, much
Yeah.
as Spock can struggle, with his human and Vulcan side.
Yeah. So sometimes she can just be a dope. And
Yeah.
I think the thing about Tom is that he knows this about her. And I think that's why he doesn't react in the typical
Um,
way.
so he's not just a bad boyfriend.
No, I don't think he's a
Okay.
bad boyfriend. I think that he knows something is up, but he knows that if he asks her, she's going to say she's fine.
Right. And so he doesn't bother let her come to him.
Yeah.
And so if she doesn't come to him, there's not an issue.
Yeah. Because if he presses her, she's just gonna get pissed off.
Right.
But see, that's the thing about women and people who identify as women in general. If a woman tells you that she's fine, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And whatever you did, you better fucking apologize.
Okay.
So anytime a woman says she's fine, that is code for I am not okay.
Which is weird because I can say fine or okay, and you're like, really? That's all? And it's like, no, fine and okay are fine and okay. It's a
Yeah,
very little, like, I'm fine. I'm doing okay.
yeah. But see, that's the thing is women were conditioned to
Right.
always be fine and
And so
always be
it's
okay,
like
even
coded
though they
language.
weren't. And
Right.
so, yeah, unfortunately, women still use that code.
Yep.
And I'm not one of those. If I say I'm fine, usually because it all depends on tone of voice too. Because
Right.
if somebody says, "Are you okay?" and I say, "I'm fine," obviously I am not.
Right.
Obviously I'm not. But there are days where I'm just like, I'm not great. I'm not terrible. I'm fine. That's a whole different thing. So stupid words. All right.
Yeah. Words.
Words. Anything else you want to say, babe?
No, I think that covers the episode. I said I'd find a song that shares somewhat the title of the episode, and that may be something I do from now on.
Ooh, cool.
And one that came to mind was Shattered in Aspect by Faith and the Muse. It's one of their more popular songs, a kind of
Cool.
pagan rock band. Very
Nice.
cool. William Faith, ex-Christian Death, and oh, what's her name? But yeah, the Muse.
Mm,
God, I just forgot her name. But yeah, she's the vocalist. So he's an multi-instrumentalist, and she's the singer, and they do pagan rock together. Every once in a while, he'll sing a song, which is kind of cool.
mm-hmm.
So
Very cool. All
I want
right
to say
then.
Monica Wood. Bet that's wrong. Maybe I
Yeah.
should look it up.
Do you want to tell people about socials?
Socials. There's the shield podulate thing on X, although everybody's kind of mass
Mass
exodus from
exiting? They're
that.
mass
Yeah,
exiting?
yeah.
Get it?
There's
Exiting?
yeah, yeah.
Sorry,
They're
it's so
they're
dumb.
Xing X because the blue sky is blowing up right now, and we're on that as Shield Podulation Podcast. I manage that account. You manage the X one. Um,
Yeah, but I haven't posted to it because I basically just stopped using X.
Yeah, there's really no. Oh, Monica Richards. I was right with the Monica, just not with the
Mm.
last name. But Monica Richards is the singer, and William Faith, are Faith in the Muse. I think that's the main one to do right now. We're also on Facebook, but I just typically post the episodes there. I don't really engage too much. If you want to engage, Blue Sky's the place to do it because, yeah, I'll manage that account. I'll respond to any messages you put there. We have email too, which is what, shieldpodulation@gmail.com. Is that right?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
So if you want to send us feedback or, something, a longer message in the form of an email, that would be the way to do it.
Hmm.
I guess you could rate and review on whatever podcatcher you have. We just reached 200 plays today, which is kind of a nice little benchmark.
Yeah.
We still haven't reached our 10th episode, but that'll be exciting because, yeah, that's usually the benchmark is whether a podcast is going to last or not if you can make it past episode 10. And
Yep.
with us doing it every other week, normally we would already have crossed that threshold.
Yep.
But, it's going
Threshold.
to take
That's
us.
another fun
Yep.
Voyager one that people hate, but I love because it's so fucking ridiculous.
And I
Okay.
think I already have a song for Threshold. I believe there's a Frontline Assembly song called Threshold.
Excellent.
Yep.
Okay. Well, the only thing left to do is to choose next week's thing, or rather,
This
let
is the
Siri
most
choose.
exciting part. We were talking
I
about this
know.
earlier.
Yes.
The risk reward thing, the anticipation, the series we haven't talked about yet, and the chances of doing that, and then the fear we might get another Voyager episode. Not that I hate Voyager, it's just we've done 3 episodes already. It'd be nice to do other things, or
Yep.
maybe a movie. Like if we
Yep.
get Into Darkness, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
It's going to come
Uh,
up sooner or later.
I'll just walk up into the mountains. You'll never see me again. Disappear
I'll
behind
go
the
with you.
campus.
I will go with you. I
I
will.
keep hitting the microphone with my glasses since I moved where it's located.
Anyway, okay, so here we go. Hey
All right.
Siri, give me a number between 1 and 939.
Wow. 939.
The answer is 940.
No,
Ni-
that is not between 1 and 939. Are you on drugs?
940.
Is not between 1 and 939.
No, it is not.
Am I being pranked? Okay, let's try this again. Hey Siri,
I was excited being in the
give me a
900s.
number between 1 and 939.
It's 248.
248.
248. Watch it be another Voyager.
It's not Voyager, babe. I promise you. That's TNG probably.
Might be
Uh,
DS9.
let's see. 248. Actually, you're right. It is DS9
Cool.
and it is season 1, episode 5, Babel.
Babel or
Mhm.
Babel. Babel, Babel. Babel, Babel.
Babel. If it were Babel, there'd be BABB, but
I think I've got a song
English is
related to
weird.
Babel too.
So yeah, there we go. It originally aired on January 24th, 1993.
Yeah.
So finally, a DS9 episode, guys. Woot woot.
Yeah, exciting. Season 1, which is going to be a little shaky, but
Yeah, it is. There are some really actually some great episodes in season 1, but
yeah,
a lot of them are kind of oy. But
yeah,
that's typical kind of Star Trek from
yeah,
Next Generation on, except well, it just depends on your point of view, but I feel like Discovery hit the ground running and just never stopped. They just kept running and running and running, running, running.
yeah. Well, with the streaming era of television, you kind of have to. You have to
Yeah.
know what you're doing on episode 1. Oh,
And
people will debate about episode 1 of Discovery
and same thing with
and its
Strange New
quality.
Worlds, same
Yeah,
thing with Lower Decks,
yeah,
all these things. So
yeah. You're expected to be like good right off the start, otherwise you get canceled.
Yeah. Well,
So yeah,
canceling is different.
streaming is
But yeah.
tough, tough thing.
So, okay, Babel
So
next
yeah,
in a couple of weeks.
DS9.
Hmm.
Yeah, exciting. A new cast to talk about, new experiences to talk about. I mean,
Yeah.
really great when we get into a series we haven't discussed yet. So it
I
should be
don't,
fun.
we haven't had TOS yet.
No, we
TAS, we
haven't
had
had
one
TOS,
TAS.
we haven't had Discovery, we haven't had Strange
Strange
New
New
Worlds
Worlds, we haven't had
yet.
Lower Decks, we haven't had any
Right.
short treks.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I thought we weren't doing oh no, we weren't doing the micro super short treks, but we're doing the
Yeah, the
short
very
treks.
short treks. The very
Yeah, we're
short
not
treks
doing
we're
very
not
short
doing.
treks because we hate them
Yes.
and we think they're mean-spirited,
Yes. Agree.
which is not the tone that Star Trek should be,
Nope.
in my opinion.
Agree.
Yeah.
All
All right,
right.
so next time DS9, very exciting.
Yes. Two
Very
weeks
exciting
hence.
indeed.
Same podcast channel that I
Oh, and you
use
can
with
find
those.
me as DJ Evil Dave dearly everywhere. SoundCloud, Blue Sky, uh, not X anymore. I deleted that account. Um, Mastodon, not on Threads because why should I? Blue Sky's fine. It's got much more people there. It's more exciting.
Hmm.
People are coming there all the time. They've got these things called starter packs if you want to follow a whole bunch of people at once that are related to a particular thing. There might be a Star Trek starter pack on there somewhere.
I bet you money there is.
Yeah, that has a bunch of Star Trek people in it. So
Yep.
yeah, yeah, DS9 next time. So yeah, that was us with this episode, this kind of mind twisting episode with time travel-y things in it.
Hmm. So yeah, see you next time. Well, we won't see you, but I'll see
Or
you
speak to
on the
you.
video screen next time, Dave.
Yeah, you'll see me because
I'll see you
even though
because
we
we're
live in the same house and we're one room apart, we still record on Zoom for the purposes of sound quality and management and all that stuff.
yeah, it's just easier this way.
Yeah, it's easier to balance the levels without like a mixing board and stuff. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Okay, bye.
Bye.